Unstoppable kick-ass confidence. Are you ready?
Welcome to the Raw and Unscripted show with Christopher Rausch, where we help you overcome your self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. Now please welcome our host, Christopher Rausch.
And please welcome our host. What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Welcome to the Raw and Unscripted show. I'm your host, Christopher Rausch, your no excuses coach, and you're at the place where I help you overcome your self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. Raw and Unscripted, baby, every night or every day, every week. Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, your place to be Raw and Unscripted, where I either have solo shows where I just talk about whatever it is that can empower your mind and your confidence, or I have amazing guests on here and we just riff back and forth like we're sitting in a bar, we're sitting in a coffee shop, designed to move your confidence and your empowerment forward, ladies and gentlemen. So here's the thing that we request from you. Ask us questions in the chat, engage with us in the chat. You like something, comment on it, but also, more importantly, take notes. Take notes of what's happening here, because I can tell you this, the people who watch the show that take notes, they'll write to me and they'll say, oh my God, Chris, I took notes of the show and I put those things into play, and here's the results of what it is that I'm doing. It's one thing to show up to these shows, one thing to show up to seminars and everything and get all pumped up and be, yeah, I feel so good and I'm so inspired. But unless you take action really within the first 36 hours, but they say 72 hours, but I say within the first 36 hours, if you don't take action on some of the stuff that you learn, guess what? It's going to go poof. And you're going to allow the chaos from the outside world to come back in and infiltrate your mind. So what it is here that I tell you to do is what's worked for me. And if it works for me, it'll work for everybody, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you guys for being here, whether you're live or on the replay. We appreciate you. And also, if you're listening on the audio podcast, we are now in 7 different countries. Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys. We're big in India. I think that's pretty awesome. We're big in the UK. And we're starting to grow in Germany. And I think a couple other places. I can't remember off the top of my head. So thank you guys for tuning in and listening. And if this episode impacts you, please share it out. Share it out on your social media. Say, hey, listen, I just got done listening to Chris and Raw and Unscripted and his amazing guest, who I'm going to introduce here in a second. They blew my mind. They blew my mind, and here's what they blew, and here's what I want for you. And just put that in your social media. That's one way you can pay it forward and help me out by growing the show and growing the impact of what it is that we really want to do here. That's why I show up every single week. That's why I do my Friday night show as well, the Unfiltered Experience. And I got a preliminary announcement. I'm going to be doing another podcast. It's all going to be about kids. It's all going to be youth empowerment. It's going to be for you parents out there, you teachers out there. We want to give you some tools and some resources in order to help the kids of the world today, because us adults, we're all fucked up. Let's just be honest. And our time here is limited, but the kids and the kids of their kids, they're the ones that are going to inherit this world. And we want them to inherit a kick-ass world. We want them to inherit an amazing world. And we got to start with ourselves, but more importantly, we got to start with these kids. These kids are struggling right now. COVID's been going on for a couple of years now. We've had a lot of different things going on in the world today. They're returning to school. They're dealing with a lot of chaos. They're dealing with social media pressures. They're dealing obviously with the violence that's going on around the world in malls and in schools and everything else. So we got to be there for our kids, ladies and gentlemen. If you're a parent, please be there for your kids. Do not know what your kid is doing, what they're up to. Be involved with them. And that's one of the things we're going to be doing with this. So yeah, more information on that to come. And as always, I just want to do a little shout out here for my organization, Help Heal Humanity. Of course, it's all about growing people and healing humanity and taking care of our kids. HelpHealHumanity.org is an amazing organization that I'm on the board of. Been there for a couple of years now. Serena Buffalino is amazing. She's our CEO and founder. And basically, we are just doing everything across the globe to help heal humanity. Right now, we've got a $100,000 program going on where we are raising money to keep our kids in school in Haiti. We have built a school in one of the worst areas in Haiti, and we're intent on sending over 100 kids back to school when school resumes. And we need your help. We need your help, whether you want to sponsor a child, whether you want to donate. At the worst case, if you want to volunteer for the organization, help us raise funds, whatever it might be, even just as small as saying, hey, helphealhumanity.org, sending it out on your social media, help us raise awareness, help us raise a cause for what we're doing. We're all non-paid volunteers. It's all from the goodness of our heart. And if you dig what I'm saying in this podcast, in this show, and I know you do, because a lot of you are longtime listeners, please pay it forward and let me know what's going on. And do that with your dollar, do that with your hard work, and let's raise some money for Help Heal Humanity. We appreciate it. We love you guys. And without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are excited to be here tonight. The individual that I'm going to have on my show tonight, her name is Tracie Randolph. She is an incredible individual. She has a story to tell. More importantly, she's got enthusiasm. She's got answers and solutions. She's the host of 2 podcasts a week, which we're going to talk about as well. And we're just going to kind of get into what we can do to help you guys expand your knowledge, increase your confidence, and have a kick-ass life. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Raw and Unscripted show, Tracie Randolph. What's going on, Tracy?
Woo, woo. Hey.
How you doing?
I'm great. How are you, my brother from another mother?
I'm awesome. I'm here on the West Coast where it's 100 degrees, and just like stewing. But fortunately, I got air conditioning and my studio is cool, so I'm appreciative of that. But what's going on with you? Where are you about? I can't remember where you are in the world.
Well, I live in North Carolina, but at the moment, I am in New Jersey, where I am from. So visiting my family this for 2 weeks, actually. Came for a wedding, and then, of course, decided to stay for a little while to hang out.
Nice. Well, thank you for being here on the Raw and Unscripted show. I know it's 10 o'clock there, so thank you. So first question I want to talk about, which I kind of just kind of alluded to in the summary of the opening of the show. Mm-hmm. The last couple of years, we've all been through chaos. It's been COVID. We were in lockdown. We were masks, all these different things going on. What did you learn most about yourself during COVID and these last 2 years? What have you learned most about yourself? I know I learned quite a bit about myself. I know I learned quite a bit about humanity in general, but what is it for you that you learned about yourself during this time?
Honestly, that I wasn't living my complete fulfilled life. That's number one. I decided to leave my corporate job during COVID. Yeah. I mean, knew that I wanted to beforehand, but really just made that move during COVID. But also just understand, I mean, I always thought I was a resilient person, but so many emotions came out. I mean, I was living in New Jersey at the time. And, this was one of the hotbeds for COVID, New Jersey and New York. We lost so many people in such a short amount of time, as did, a lot of the world. But here, because there's a lot of people in, in a small space, like there's so many people that we just lost so many people at one time. And I started virtual classes during COVID because I just wanted to make myself feel good. And then I just started rallying other women, like, let's just jump on, support each other, work to stay healthy, boost our immune systems, stay sane, right, during this crazy time. So that's what was going on with me during COVID. I was just really trying to keep my sanity after so many things happening. I could have lost my mom during that period because she had COVID very early on. And, one thing I said to her was like, don't let them take you to the hospital, because I have some things that can help you to heal. And she didn't, because we had lost so many people in the hospital. So it was just a crazy time. So just resilience and, making different pivots to say, I'm still going to live life, and love people, throughout this nonsense.
Live life and love people. I love that. So what you talk about in leaving your day job, I did that back in November of 2019, and a lot of different emotions came up for me. How was that for you? What was that decision-making process like? And more importantly, how did you work through that fear? Because I know there's people watching this and listening to this right now who, want to do that, but the overwhelming sense of fear and uncertainty and everything else. Talk to us about that process for you, and what are some of the things that you thought about and how you overcame those excuses?
Well, listen, it was a process, Chris, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I woke up one day and I just left my job. That did not happen. It took me 7 years, number 7, the number for completion, right? It took me 7 years to leave my job. So I had started the process of doing some of the things that I love. So I went and got my health coaching and life coaching certification, did all of that while I was working, started planning. I didn't just sit up one day and just say, I'm going to leave. And then that fear came in because I had that regular paycheck, and I have a child also that I need to take care of, as you met my little guy. Yeah, thank you. I was thinking about, him and the fact that I had to take care of him as well. And, just expenses and things that need to get done. So I started the planning process 7 years ago, started to do the things that I needed to do. And and that fear kept me there longer probably than I should have. But it was almost like God was tapping me on my shoulder. So many things were happening in my life, even before I left. Like, everything started like nudging me and tapping me and saying, you need to leave. But I didn't, because that fear kicked in. And I was like, well, how am I going to pay for everything that I need to pay for? How am I going to take care of my child? How am I going to do something completely different after, being an accountant for over 20 years? How am I going to do this? So that fear definitely kicked in, but I planned and I planned and I prayed and I prayed and I planned and I prayed. And then, yeah, exactly. And then, I can really say I just decided during COVID, like, life is too short. And that was the time. And most people probably would have said, I really can't do this now. But I was so stressed out on my job. I was like, I have to do this now because life is too short, and everything that I prepared for. Listen, it's like, all right, either get out there and do it or just be miserable and be okay with being miserable. So then I just said, it's time to leave.
I love that. I love that. That's a term I originally coined probably about a year ago or so. I call it comfortably miserable. Like when you're in a job and you're getting paid just enough and you're just comfortable enough, but you're just like, okay, it's a dead end and I'm not happy and I'm stressed out and I'm sitting in traffic and I'm doing all these things and I get home and I'm burnt out and I don't want to spend time with my family because I'm tired and everything else. Comfortably miserable. And I've seen so many people through COVID and those conversations, exactly just like you, start taking a step back and reevaluating and going, really, what's my bigger purpose in life? What's my bigger priority in life? Is it to make money, to buy things, to be burned out, and then to get sick later on and spend the rest of my life trying to get better? No, it's about really truly living right now. And you brought up a word that I want you to expand upon. You said resiliency before, and I happen to know some of your backstory, and I'll let you tell it. But where did Tracy learn the most resiliency in her life?
Oh, well, listen, I learned resiliency from my mother. Honestly, she has a story, and it's part of my story too. But she was in an abusive situation with my father, and she has always been one of the most resilient women. And I've always looked up to her for that, because just the strength and the tenacity and just the push forward that she showed throughout those years just really influenced me. As a child, and then as a young woman, and as a woman, as a person who just knew I needed to get out here and just do things for myself. Like, I just saw that in her. So it just automatically trickled over to me.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I'm going to give the other raw part of my story, right? I was, because this is authentic and unscripted, right? I was the person who told my father that he had to go at 12 years old. So I feel like all that she taught me had me prepared for even that moment, and don't get me wrong, I was 12, so I didn't really think much about it. I just knew that this couldn't continue. And I love my mother so much that I was just not prepared to allow that to continue to happen to her. So that was it.
Wow. Have you been still in contact with him now? I mean, 12 years old,
Well,
you're a little bit older now.
My father is deceased now. He passed away when I was 22. And we had our moments after that where we were really close. And then we kind of, when he passed away, I wasn't close to him because I was angry, because at that point I was 22. So I knew how to be angry at 22,
Oh yeah.
Right. So I was angry with him when he passed away. So I had to forgive him after he died. I didn't do that before he left here.
Ooh, forgiveness.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite words. Talk to us about that process, because I know a lot of people are struggling with that. They're blaming people, and they're blaming people from their past, and they're not able to continue on with that anger and that animosity and everything. And I know for me, when I found a way to forgive my mom and all the different things that she did, the physical abuse, the mental abuse, the spiritual abuse, everything, taking me out of school and when I was 13 years old and being homeless and everything. Once I found a way to process that anger and that animosity and give her forgiveness, my world opened up. So talk to us about that process for you and how forgiveness works for you.
Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of talking to him from the grave, to be honest. Just in my house, I had many nights where I cried and I talked to him and, tried to just kind of iron it out. I prayed a lot. I was in church very early on in my life. My family's always had me in church. Well, my family was raised in the church. I was raised in the church. So definitely that connection. I'm a faith-based person. And, I had to just pray through it and just talk to him, even though he wasn't there. To let everything out that I couldn't say to him while he was alive, I had to let out when I was, at home alone. And it really did give me some peace just to yell it out, and I did. I yelled a lot.
You mother.
Say that again.
No, I was just going to say you mother effer, but I don't know if you swear or not.
I try not to, but sometimes it comes out.
in those moments, man, it's just a good release. It's like
Yeah.
Well, I know for me in the process of forgiveness and empathy, for me, it happened when I sat there and I thought about it. I'm like, my mom always told me that she was 4 years old, even when I was younger. And I'm like, Mom, you're a grown ass adult, start acting like it. Why don't you start taking responsibility and stop focusing on all your cats? She had a lot of cats, like 30 cats. When we got evicted from our house, I wound up in the backseat of a station wagon with 18 cats and 4 dogs.
Wow.
Literally, they were going to call the cops, have us evicted, like physically evicted, but we had until 5 o'clock. And literally we were stuffing as many cats as we could get in the car. Wow. God's honest truth. I just wrote about this in the book that we went back to that house like every night for a week trying to find the other cats. And we already had a station wagon full of cats.
Wow.
But my point is this: when I was sitting there, when she kept saying that she was 4 years old, I'm like, Mom, you're a grown ass adult. Simultaneously, it was around the time where I was starting to study child psychology and learning about the conditioning process that happens between 0 and 5 and how our opinions and our beliefs about society and ourselves are really shaped during those times. And I'm like, 4 years old. I'm like, just a question popped in my brain. I'm like, what happened to her at 4 years old? And then I remembered that's when her parents got divorced. Wow. And that's when she went with her psychotic mother, who was my grandmother, who I didn't particularly care for. And her dad, was what we called a holiday dad. Like we saw him on Mother's Day, we saw him on Thanksgiving, we saw him on Christmas, but she really didn't see him any other time. And that really hurt her. That abandonment hurt her. And then her mom was physically abusive towards her, didn't let her have a childhood, wanted her to be scholastically brilliant, and which my mom was, but she was people stupid. And as a result, she frequented the men. She really liked the men, but she had daddy issues, let's just be honest. And, had abortions and miscarriages. And actually, I was supposed to be placed for adoption. So when I started looking at that, I asked myself this one question. This one question has helped so many people. I said, if I walked in her shoes, if I walked in her path, had all the different experiences that she did, might I be like her? I didn't want to say it, but I'm like, yeah, I would probably have been like her. So that gave me the opportunity to release and surrender a lot of that anger and animosity, because, when she told me that she did the best that she could with what she had, I still call bullshit. But at the same time, I'm like, with her mind and what she was born with, maybe that was her best. And so I was able to sit there, reposition my thinking to say, okay, instead of what she did to me, then I rephrased it as what she did for me. And now I'm the man I am today. And now I'm an amazing dad to my 5-year-old son. I don't physically abuse him. I've never spanked him. And she would warn me, she's like, don't have kids. And I'm like, why shouldn't I have kids? And she goes, because, abuse runs in our family. Like it's some sort of like it's cancer or heart disease or something like that. I'm like, no, you made a choice to beat the shit out of me. You made a choice not to go to anger management. You made a choice to do all these things. Hence, I'm still here and I'm stronger for it. But, I really didn't agree with what she did, but it was allowed me to give her that forgiveness. And now through my coaching clients, I'm able to really peel a large part of their anger and animosity away, because I'm like, just think about that person and what position they were in and what they grew up with. Might you be like them? And they're like, dang, I never really thought of it that way. So that's what worked for me. So thank you for sharing that, because forgiveness is massive. I mean, has there been any other times in your life where you've had to learn to forgive someone?
My son's father.
Fathers are not a good thing in your life.
Right. It has not been a good thing, but yeah, he pretty much abandoned me when my son came. He was kind of on again, off again, and had to forgive him too. And at that point, I was already at the place where I was like, I don't need an explanation. As long as I can love from where I am, then I'm okay. Once I, can move past it, because I had to feel it first and then move past it and release all the anger. And once I did that, I'm like, I'm fine. Like, I'm fine with him now to this day. Like, we're good. But, he still doesn't do what he's supposed to. But, for me, it's okay, to be perfectly honest with you, because I love my son and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that he's good. So it is what it is,
I love that. We got Dano in the house. What's up, Dano? He says, 2 amazing people. Thank you, Dano, for being here. Dano is a friend of ours. We all met at the Power We Symposium in Chicago. What was that? June?
In June, April, actually. April.
Was it April? It's like time is flying by so fast. 2 amazing people, and one of them's right here, and Dano's been on the show as well. So I want to talk about this. So my son's 5 years old. We adopted him from birth. And, he remembers April 28th. Thank you, Dano. So my son's 5 years old, and I think about how much I've changed since I became a dad. And I really didn't want to become a dad for most of my life. I was like indifferent about it. Like I love my freedom and everything. What is being, I know it's taught me a lot. What has being a parent taught you about yourself and about life?
Ooh, that I had the power to really love somebody unconditionally, like really, really. I said to my mom when my son came out, I was like, I never, and I love my mom, but I've never felt a love like that before. When my son came out, I was like, oh, I have the power to really love, because I was career chasing, to be honest with you, because of, kind of what I was taught in the past. It's like, go get your own, girl. That was the attitude, because I have all these amazing women in my life who are really strong women. So it was like, go get your own. So that's what I was focused on. I was focused on going to get my own. But God had a different path for me. He was like, nope, I need you to love. I need you to see that, like this money that you're chasing and this career that you're chasing, that's not important. So that's what I learned first, being a parent. But I know we talked about this a little bit at the Power of We. Patience, and more patience. And my son is a teenager now, so the attitude is a little bit different sometimes. He's a good kid, but listen, he has his moments. He has his teenager moments where that attitude kicks in, and the mouth goes to a place where I'm like, some words come out that I don't like. So I'm like, oh no, buddy, this is not how things are going down here. But so patience is a big one.
How does he respect you in those moments, or is he like trying to still test his will and his individuality?
It's a little like, a little quieter, but he's saying things, to definitely test the waters, he's never disrespectful. He doesn't use derogatory words, or he doesn't curse. He's not doing any of that, but it's just the talking back, the low talking back. That's what comes out, and the attitude behind it, but it is what it is. He's a teenager. It's to be expected. I did it to my mom. I have to say, I definitely.
What do they call paybacks or a what? Yeah,
payback. Yeah, exactly.
Paybacks are a bitch. Like, yep.
Yeah, and he's like he's a Mr. Smarty Pants. So he's very analytical in his thinking and very logical in his thinking. So that's what comes out, and he thinks he knows more than I do sometimes.
Oh, those are the worst.
Yeah, that's what comes out.
Those are the worst. One of my friends has a brilliant kid. I think he's 11 or 12 right now, and he's so smart. He tells his dad that he comes up with arguments. He's like, "Why do I have to do my homework? They want to teach us algebra, but now there's these apps. Why do I have to do this? It seems stupid." And he's like really super brilliant. And my friend RF is like telling me, he's like, I have to come up with these really smart answers back to him. So it's like they're playing tennis. Like he serves the ball and he's like, okay, let me think about this. How can I say this back to him? And sometimes he just says, you know what? I agree with you. He just puts his guard. He goes, I agree with you, but this is the format. This is the structure we have to go through. This is how we have to play the game. And sometimes we have to play that game. So he gives his son advice. Like, this is what you do. This is how you swallow it, get your stuff done, and then go do what you need to do.
Yeah.
But I know for me, that was the other question I was going to ask you. Since your son is 8 years older than mine, looking back on your life when your son was 5, would you do anything different to prepare him to be different now at 13?
I think I would prepare him to just really, which I'm doing now, but if I could have started it at 5 and realized it myself when he was 5, I would prepare him to really just live the life that he really wants to and start to move towards that. And, even if that's just exploration, because at 5, you don't really know what you want to do with your life, right? But just even if that's exploring different things that he was interested in at that time to like open up the world a little bit more for him, then I definitely would have done more of that.
Oh yeah. That's the thing I'm conflicted with. One of my friends gave me great advice, which still haunts me to this day. She goes, Chris, if you don't want to see it at 13, you better not see it at 5. But at the same time, I'm like trying to be flexible, and I don't want to be, the dad that's always like, stop doing that, and you need to be doing this, because I've seen dads like that. So I'm like balancing that line of discipline and structure, but also freedom. I'm like, okay, Chris, just because you don't think he should do that, doesn't mean that he shouldn't do that, because I want him to be him. I don't want him to be encumbered by anything else. So I'm like trying to walk that line. But my friend said that. She goes, if you don't want to see it at 13, you better not see it at 5. So I'm like being more structured. Like, you got to pick up your room before you get your iPad. You got to, like really build these things into play for him. And he gets all pissed off. And I'm like, I'm doing this for your own good. And my friends who have kids who are older in their 20s now, they tell me that they're like, well, Chris, be careful, because when if you're too lenient, then they'll turn out super lenient. He goes, but I just had a buddy of mine tell me that his kids thanked him now for being hard on them when they were young.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like trying to balance that line of, okay, tough love, but at the same time letting him be who he wants to be.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And it is a balancing act, right? Because you don't want to shut them down, right? You want them to have some freedom so that they can explore life and see things from a different perspective, right? You don't want to completely shut them down, like the old school way of doing things. Like you can't like boys, right? I'm just going to use the boys as an example since we both have boys, but you can't cry, you can't talk back, or, try to even debate a little bit. And I do let him do that because I want to understand his perspective and point of view of everything, right? But there's that balancing act to try to see, like, okay, I don't want to completely shut him down, but then also he can't be disrespectful, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What types of punishment? I'm just asking you from parent to parent, what types of punishment or discipline really work the best for him?
Taking things away that he really loves, like those video games at the moment, taking those things away. And listen, he doesn't get much of that because he's not doing that much for me to take them away. But when it comes to that point where, all right, you're getting it's a little too much now, so you can't play video games today and tomorrow, whatever it is, but that's the big thing for him because he loves video games. Like he's very intentional about, okay, I gotta get my schoolwork done because I want to play, which I love, because he makes sure that what needs to get done gets done first. And then, but those games, he loves video games.
Don't they all? My son's downstairs playing them right now.
Yeah.
Of course, we got him a little Nintendo, I don't know what the hell it's called, Switch or something like that. I play it too. I'm like, how can we get Galaga on here? I want to play Galaga. And he's like, Dad, what's Galaga? I'm like, that's when video games were invented.
Yeah, old school.
Old school, yeah. So I want to go back to resiliency, because that, for some reason, that's still coming up in my brain. Talk to us about a time maybe in your life, aside from having to be at 12 years old and tell your dad sayonara, which is a tough thing to do. Talk to us about any other time in your life where you went through something that was challenging, excruciating. Talk to us about how you got through that and what lessons you learned from it.
I would say having breast cancer was definitely one of those times where I had to show resiliency. But really for me, because my son was young then, he was, maybe 3-4 years old at the time. It was really, I was really more thinking about him. Like he needs his mom. So I need to just get it right, figure out what I need to do, so I got on my knees. Once again, I was praying.
Oh yeah, I would be too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But before cancer, I had this, this event that happened. It was like Hurricane Sandy at the time here in New Jersey, and we lost all of our power. And I had this sectional sofa, and at the time we had a portable DVD player that we used to take when my son was young, when we traveled in the car. And we were watching that. We were watching Cars. I remember we were watching Cars on the portable DVD player, one of the best Disney movies out there, by the way. But on the portable DVD player, and the candles are on and everything. And I'm praying about a tree in my neighbor's yard because the tree's dead, and it was huge tree, and it's dead. And I'm like, please don't let this tree come down. Not on her house, not on ours, just keep this tree intact. And I felt this like peace, but then it was like my whole house illuminated, right? Lit up. And it's just candles on, power outside, everything, all the power's out. But my house lit up like the sun was shining outside. And I immediately knew that it was like, okay, everything is going to be okay. But then not only that, I felt like a dome came down over my house.
Whoa.
Really, like it was almost like I heard it hit. That's how powerful it was. And I'm like, well, okay, God, I understand. So my son fell asleep. I blew out the candles and went to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, that big tree, that old sick tree, big tree, still intact, no branches from it, nothing. The only thing that fell was this very small piece of my fence, our adjoining fence. That was the only thing, with all the, trees and lines down around us. That was the only thing that came down. So I knew in that moment, I thought in that moment that God was telling me everything was going to be all right with that tree. A month later, I found out I had breast cancer. When I found out I had breast cancer, I knew that God was preparing me for something else. And he was saying, I got you, not for the tree not falling down, but for the breast cancer. So once I got over the initial shock of it and thought about that moment, I was like, okay, this is bigger than me. He was preparing me for something more, which is why like that whole 7 years of preparing me to become a coach and learning about nutrition and exercise, all that came from that experience also, because he was like, I got more for you. There's something else for you to do here. And it's not what you're currently doing. And you didn't see that. I was supposed to see that when I had my child. And I didn't see it when I had my child. I ignored it, you know? So then when that experience happened and he said, I got to give you something greater, something to threaten your life because you're not listening to me, girl. So, right, exactly. I needed a slap in the face.
He did this.
So, exactly. But he had to give me that experience too, for me to recognize and trust and even have even more faith in him. So he showed up in a big way. It's super profound for me. And I was like, everything is going to be all right. But I still had to exercise that resilience. And I went into research mode and completely changed my life because of that particular event, you know, completely, like not just, you know, the health perspective, right, for the physical body, but the mind, you know, my spirit, and then even just what I was going to do with my life. So.
Ooh, I want to dig into that. Talk to us about some of the things that came to you that you realized that you were doing that maybe were harming your mind or your body. And what are some of those things that you shifted? Because I got a friend of mine, he's been on the show as well. Heath, he's a dear friend of mine. He's had cancer twice. And now he is like full on, you know, like juice, you know, he does everything like to make sure he never has cancer in his body again. He doesn't eat sugar, like all these different things. And he's like, I swear by it. He goes, it's a pain in the butt. He goes, but this is the thing I learned. So what are some of those processes that you learned? Because I know the viewers and the listeners on the podcast will definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, sugar definitely is a big deal. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And any doctor that you go to, any good doctor will tell you to cut the sugar, especially when it comes to cancer, because it just feeds off of that sugar. And sugar is just like a drug. So it's very addictive. So it's hard to get rid of, but at the same time, it's very necessary. So sugar was a big one for me. At the time, I didn't eat pork or beef when this happened because faddishly, I quit those in college. But I reduced my meat. I still eat chicken and I still eat fish. But just reduce that. But a lot of vegetables, you know, incorporated a lot more vegetables. I actually just went today. I was looking here in New Jersey for a plant-based restaurant so I can go get a whole bunch of food that I like and not have to eat any meat. Because, you know, sometimes when we gather the chicken is one of those things that have been hard for me. But I still do eat it sometimes. But just to incorporate a cleaner lifestyle, you know, completely, even like the foods that I buy, like, so the chicken is definitely organic, you know, no antibiotics, you know, none of the cases, the preservatives, to read the ingredients on packages, right? So I won't say that I don't buy food in a package, but if I buy it, I have to know what's in it, right? So that's the thing that I started doing, reading ingredients, and then started incorporating things that I knew would help me, certain herbs and spices like turmeric and ginger. And those are things I never ate before, and they make a world of difference in our health. I started taking wheatgrass shots, you know, like just things that I knew would help my body to recover, to, you know, pH balance it, to do all the things that were going to have my cells healthy, because that's really, you got to get down to the cellular level when you're needing to fight disease. So I just started learning about that and how to incorporate those things into my lifestyle.
And that's what you coach people on now?
Yeah. And the other thing that I started, which I never would have even known about had I not had cancer, is, and I'm going to get a little bit raw on this one too, is I started to cleanse. And I started doing this cleanse. It's almost like liquid Drano for your intestines. Really amazing. And I have proof that it's really amazing. So I started doing after I had all my surgeries and everything, I started to cleanse. And then at 50 years old, which was just last year, I went and got my first colonoscopy. So I'm going to talk about that, right?
That too.
Right. So my doctor and the nurse said, we don't know what looks better, your insides or your outsides. And they showed me pictures of it super clean, my intestines, my colon clean. I know that was attributed to, of course, changing my habits and changing the way I ate, but then also cleansing, because, you know, things get stuck in there, just like, you know, your pipes for your sink and everything, things get stuck in there. And that cleanse helped to push everything out. So just amazing to actually see the results of what I started when I started living a healthy lifestyle.
Nice. What's the name of the cleanse?
It's called V-Phase Body Cleanse. I happen to meet the owners, and started, and it all started because the owner, the wife, had problems, and they found tumors, and she didn't want to have surgery, and she didn't want to take, medicinal practices to make sure that she was okay, because she felt like that wouldn't make her okay, would make it worse. And she started to speak with holistic doctors and came up with this particular cleanse. So it has this bentonite, volcanic bentonite clay, and psyllium husk powder that kind of, makes
volcanic and cleanse. That's
yeah.
I just conjured up a Dumb and Dumber scene in my
brain. Yeah. But it's amazing stuff. Is one of the things that I actually gave my mom when she was dealing with COVID, and not the snap of a finger, but within a few days she was feeling much better. So one of the things that I know that you had mentioned in the post about some of the things that I do, when you cleanse, right, and when you can clear out your gut, it's one of the most important things that you should do for your body. If you can clear out your gut, you can start to live a much healthier lifestyle when you consider your digestive system.
Talk to us about that, because I know I'm on the surface level of mitochondria, right? That's what's in your body. That's what the mitochondria that's in your stomach that helps you digest.
Oh, the microbiome, you mean?
Yeah. Talk to us about that, and talk to us about how important it is, because I know I take painkillers and stuff like that. I've been on painkillers for a while. I take 800 milligram ibuprofen, and I found out that the ibuprofen is killing my mitochondria or my microbiome. So my food's not digesting very well. So it's all kind of just leading up to, a negative outcome. Talk to us about that process, and as well as you can in a novice way, educate some of our listeners and our viewers.
Yeah. So if you change the dynamic of that, it's hard for your microbiome. It's hard for your body to fight disease, because it's like, if you think about it, you've got like these good little, I don't even know what to call it, right? But just these good little microbiomes that are helping to flush your system. And then you got the bad ones that's contributing to all the disease. So you have to try to balance that out, and you want more good than bad, right? To put it in layman's terms, you want a lot more good than bad, so that you can fight disease. Because otherwise, if you're eating the things like the sugars, and you've got all the synthetics in your food and preservatives and all those things that your body doesn't really know how to process, so it gets stuck there, it's contributing to the bad microbiome, and then you can't release the things that you need to release, right? So the toxicity stays stuck, and then it starts to get into your blood system, and then that starts to create other problems, or it starts to kill your cells, so then that creates other problems. And when your body can't release all of that, it harbors, your body's harboring it. And then that's what causes disease and illness. And that's the things that you don't want. So that's the reason why you need to clear your gut. And our bodies, we take in all of our nutrients from our small intestines. For the most part, it's like 80-something% of our nutrients come from our small intestines. So if we're not clearing that out, we're not getting the good stuff in either. We're harboring the bad, and we're not even allowing the good nutrients and vitamins that we need to go into our blood system, so that we can survive and thrive, and that our cells can thrive. So that's the other reason to make sure that you clean out your digestive system.
So what are some, and that's great advice, thank you. What are some ways that we can start with that? Aside from the volcanic cleanse, which is now stuck in my brain, what are some other ways that we can kind of reset the gut biome and microbiome, I guess, and kind of shift that process?
Yeah, so I would say do what you described your friend was doing. Start to juice a lot more, start to eat a lot more fruits and vegetables. And if you can, do it raw as much as possible, because you're going to get the maximum amount of nutrients from your food when it's raw. And I would err on the side of staying with more of the whole foods, like those fruits and vegetables, some, lentils and legumes you can do as well. But a lot of fruits and vegetables to change the dynamic in your intestines and in your colon. You definitely want to do that. That's the biggest way to start. And you want to, even before you cleanse, you want to start that whole process, because your body needs to get used to eating well before you even start to clear it out. Because, when you start to cleanse, you're going to feel some fatigue, and you're going to think something's wrong. No, it's releasing everything that your body was feeding off of. So you're going to be tired initially, but once that process, you can start to get used to that process, you feel rejuvenated. And it does so many different things for you, like your skin and your energy, like you just feel so much better. And then, you can't see what's happening on the inside, right? There's certain things that'll happen on the outside where it'll make you feel better. But, when your organs are good, for me to get that picture of, what was happening on the inside, that's the biggest part of it. You want to make sure that the insides are good. So start to eat all those great fruits and vegetables. And I would say as many different ones as you can, right? Just to incorporate all the good nutrients and good herbs and spices too. Don't rule those out because they make a big difference.
I know my wife cooks. She uses all the herbs and spices. So I love that. And I take additional turmeric and curcumin for inflammation and everything. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to touch on that I'm very, very passionate about when I sit there and I work with a client initially, and I ask them like, so what's going on in your life? Talk to me about how you're feeling. 99% of the time, like, well, I'm tired and I'm this, and I don't feel good and I can't concentrate and all these different things. The one question I ask them is, how much water do you drink?
That's a good
So
one.
I know you know this. Talk to us from your perspective, how important hydration is to the overall feeling, sense of well-being, ability to have clarity and everything else about hydration.
Oh my goodness. It's a big part of it. Put it this way, right? Our bodies are made up of mostly water. So you want to be able to replenish the water, right? Give it to your body. You want to make sure that you do that. And there's, if you look at reports, if you just Google it and look at just what being dehydrated does to you, and one day of dehydration makes a difference, right? So then if you start to compound that over a period of time, your organs start to shut down, they start to suffer. It affects every little thing. So we were talking about the digestive system. It affects that. It affects your skin. It affects your energy. There's so many different diseases that happen when you are not hydrated. Like everything about your body needs water. Every organ needs water. Every tissue needs water. Every muscle needs water. It's hard to even build muscle when you're dehydrated. It's just, it doesn't happen, so you want to make sure that even if you're just looking to get buffed up, drink the water.
Yeah. You got to drink the water.
Yeah.
What's the latest buzz about water that it has what I'm drawing a blank now. Water with
alkaline water.
Alkaline water. Yes. Thank you very much. Is that important? Because I read conflicting reports like alkaline, yes, alkaline, no. I got alkaline strips a couple of years ago. Really didn't see any difference on how much alkaline I drank and the difference on the color of the strips that I was using. Talk to us about that.
Well, your body being pH balanced allows those cells again to recover, right? It allows those cells to fight disease. So you're supposed to have, there's a scale, and you're supposed to be like right there in the middle, which is like a 7. If you take the test and you're looking at the test and it gives you the numbers, sometimes it gives you colors. But if it gives you the numbers, your pH balance is supposed to be at a 7. You're not supposed to be too alkaline and you're not supposed to be too acidic, right there in the middle. And then you know that your cells are operating properly and they'll be able to fight, and they'll have enough oxygen, because you need oxygen to fight disease. So they'll have enough oxygen. So the water can help, but unfortunately all alkaline water is not made equal. So you have to look at, the testing behind the alkaline water to make sure that it's good. But spring water is also good. If it's coming from a natural spring, because it's coming from nature. So the only thing that you have to worry about is these plastic bottles, right? And making sure that there's companies out there that don't have the harmful toxins in the bottles anymore. So you want to look for that as well. But the alkalinity part of it definitely does make a difference if you can balance out your pH levels. And there's a lot of fruits and vegetables that give you that too. Like
broccoli.
People
right?
always thought about, and no, not the broccoli. It's more of the citrus fruits. Lemon is a big one. Pineapples are a big one, but also avocado has the highest pH balance of the fruits. It's like a 12.5.
Love my avocado.
Yeah. So I can't get that out tongue-tied here, but eating avocado, say that 10 times fast, right? That will also help to pH balance your body.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah. So I want to dig into your coaching. You're known as the reset coach.
Yes.
So how do we reset ourselves? What is your process for working with new clients, and how do we reset our mindset, our bodies, and everything else? We've kind of talked about our bodies, but getting into the mindset, how do we just like get prepared to reset? Because I know so many people are struggling with wanting to stay the same. It's comfortable, it's familiar and everything else, but I'm all about, getting out of my comfort zone, getting uncomfortable with being comfortable, or getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And it's worked for me. Talk to us about that process of resetting. Because I think a lot of people that are watching this show right now and listening to this are, like we said at the top of the show, they're ready to jump from their job. They're ready to go embrace life and live and fully exist and fully commit. What are some of those processes that you do with your clients to get them to reset?
Yeah. So a part of that is, recognizing when you're at the end of the end, right? Of whatever it is that you're trying to change, the end of your comfort zone. You're at the end of your comfort zone, because a lot of times we get there and then we stay there, right? So it's helping clients to recognize, where they are, why they want the changes that they want, how important is it to them, connecting them with everything that's really important to them about why they want to make those changes. And sometimes that's experiential. It's not just I'm saying it, because a lot of times you say it and then it's out the window, right? So it's really connecting them with experiences on, why you really want this and what it's going to do for you when you get it, right? And connecting you to see yourself at the end of it and how you're going to feel when you get there, right? That's the biggest part of it. So that's the reset part. That's the mindset change piece of it.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. Something I've found that I want to share with you and get your opinion on. Over the course of COVID, I started giving complimentary coaching sessions out, just my way of paying it forward and giving it back. Mm-hmm. Like, what can I do for people? I can give them an hour of my time, and set them up for success, give them some strategies to be able to get their head out of their ass and like stay focused during the chaos. And I probably did almost a couple of hundred of them at least. And I started noticing by about the 30th one, I started noticing people's body language and everything. I was doing them over Zoom. And so something told me, my little whisper told me, ask them a question and then watch their response. And so the question came to me and I said to the person, I said, okay, listen, I'm going to ask you a question. You may think it's crazy, but I want you to answer it as soon as you can. Mm-hmm. And they're like, look at me like, what are you going to ask me? And I'm like, do you love yourself? Yes or no?
Ooh, that's a good
and one. I started seeing people get uncomfortable, Tracy. Like, well, that's a good question. I think so. I think for the most part, or you know what? No, I don't. Mm-hmm. I saw so many people, probably 70% of the people that I talked to, the amount of statistician, how do you say that? We're tripping over our words all over the place. I've been talking all day. Like tired of hearing myself talk. And I was surprised, and I started digging into that and recognizing that's like the core foundation of everything that we go from, is to be able to say that we love ourselves unconditionally and unapologetically. What is that for you? What do you do for your clients who perhaps struggle with loving themselves? What ideas or what suggestions do you have for them to start loving and embracing themselves, faults and all?
Yeah. I'll give you an example of someone that, I was coaching through this, and she was having a hard time just not, implementing any self-care, not loving the way she looked, not loving that woman that she saw in the mirror. And I said to her, what do you think about your daughters? She has 2 daughters. And I'm like, what do you think about your daughters? And she just started talking about how beautiful they were. And I'm like, they came from you. So if you could really recognize that you made something this beautiful, what do you think about yourself? What do you feel about yourself, knowing that you made these 2 beautiful human beings? And she started to think about it. She's like, whoa, because she loves her daughters, right? She's like, okay, I get it now, but that was one of the exercises that we went through. And of course it went deeper than that, but just to give you an example of, just her identifying that, oh, my daughters are beautiful and I love them. And, they had so much going for them. And I'm like, well, they're yours and they came from you. So not only did you make them physically, right, but you contributed to all that beauty, right? Even psychologically and emotionally and, and mentally. So because of that, look at the person that you are now. What can you say about yourself now, knowing what you've done with them? And then that just changed the whole perspective. And when she started to write that out, it changed her whole perspective about herself. So much so, like, she has her own business and she's a coach also for something completely different. But, she posts the self-care that she's doing for herself now.
I love that. Because when I think about like shifting perspective, so many people are looking for like the big shift. Like, I want the big aha or everything like that. I just invite people just to have that little perspective shift. Because when you have a little perspective shift, you see things a little bit differently, and then that builds on something and that builds on something. And like we were talking about before, when I have the ability to find empathy and forgiveness for people that I don't care for, that shifts my lens from looking at things from a fearful standpoint to a loving standpoint. And when I love myself and I'm taking care of myself, I'm hydrating, I'm getting a proper amount of sleep, I'm getting nutrition, I'm exercising. I mean, that's my first recommendation to everybody. Like, love yourself, hydration, nutrition, exercise, get outside, get some vitamin D, be consistent about it. Don't expect it to be overnight. Give it a couple of months, couple of weeks at least. Start to see that shift. And what that does is that builds that more confidence. It's like, oh, I've got clarity. I'm going to take on this challenge and I'm going to do this and I'm going to get a coach and I'm going to get somebody, an accountability partner, all those things, just those little shifts start to really create massive progress. I call it the compound principle. I didn't make that up, but
Yeah.
Darren Hardy wrote that book, The Compound Principle. And it's so true. Like you start changing a little bit of things, you start shifting that, you start taking action, and it's incredible what it is that you can accomplish. And by the way, our show is almost up. It's like we've already been talking for 48 minutes. I want to get into, because I am the no excuses coach. So I'm curious to find out, what are Tracy's excuses and how does Tracy overcome her own excuses?
Oh, that's a good one. And I can tell you right off the bat, I use my excuses when it comes to social media. I'm going to tell you, when it comes to business and just utilizing social media more and just putting it out there, I definitely, that's the area that I need to improve on, that I recognize that I have to improve on every day. So when you see me posting, it's like, girl, just do it. Just do it. I went to because I don't even think, I like living life out loud, and I love people, like going to the Power of We and meeting you in person. That's what I love. Right.
Yeah.
So the social media part, the virtual part, not so much, this is great, right? Because we still have this connection and I can see you. But when it comes to just putting something out there, it's like, there's no contact. I'm not, I am touching people, and that's what I have to think about. And that's what I tell myself, like, you are touching people, you're reaching people. But I like that, that close connection, and just being able to talk to people, converse. And so that's the thing for me. I love going to events, so I'm glad things are opening up now, because I like to be able to reach out and touch people.
Yeah, that was nice. Now, I mean, I think about excuses. My biggest excuse is I don't feel like it. It's like, I need to finish my book. I don't feel like writing today. Oh, I got to do some social media stuff. Oh, I don't feel like it. So then I just switch it. And I ask myself, will I feel like having the result? Yes or no? I'm very like black or white. Yes, I will. Okay, Chris, let's just write 500 words. Just get 500 words down. Then you get to go do something you want to do. Like, something you're excited about. Inevitably, you sit down and write 500 words, you write 5,000 words. And it's like, you have a killer session, and you just have to get over that initial stumbling block. And that's one thing I do as the no excuses coach, is really just get people like, what is your excuse? How can you reframe your excuse and to be a power, be full, an igniter for you to get off your ass to take responsibility for that. So I see your posts. I mean, they're amazing. You're doing your workouts and inspiring people. You're getting out there doing it. So that's the way you just think about it. Like, I get to do this. I get to go inspire somebody without even having physical contact with them. I get to inspire them, and then I get to go rock my world and do the things I want to do.
That's true. Thank you for that. And I've got my planner by me all the time too. So.
Oh, nice. You're a writer. You've got a planner. I keep yellow pads all around me.
Nice.
Like, there's one next to the couch. I'm constantly like, oh, I've got an idea. I went to the beach on Saturday, took my yellow pad, came up with some ideas for my group coaching program. So you got to write shit down.
Yeah. When you can see it, it makes a big difference.
Yeah. I got to thank you for being here on the Raw and Unscripted show, Tracy. This has been amazing. We've already been going for 51 minutes. I try to keep it under an hour for people watching and listening, but where can people get a hold of you and continue the conversation?
Yeah, they can go to Facebook. I am the Reset Coach on Facebook, or Tracy Randolph. I am also on Instagram at @the_reset_coach. They can email me at tracyr@theresetglobal.com, or they can go to my website, which is theresetcoach.com.
Damn, that was almost like it was planned.
Yeah.
Truth be told, we ran through these before we went on the show. Most of the time I don't run through them with people, but I wanted to make sure I got them right. So again, ladies and gentlemen, connect with her IG at @the_reset_coach. And these will be all in the show notes. If you guys are listening to this on the podcast, you guys know where to go to see the video cast. You guys can get all these. Tracy, I'm going to ask you also, before I forget, can you go put a link into that volcanic cleanse that you were talking about in the show afterwards? Yeah, so that way it'll just live on forever, because I know people will appreciate that. But yes, definitely go to theresetcoach.com and check out Tracy. She's a phenomenal person. Like I said, I've had the opportunity to work with her as an MC for the Power of We Symposium. Got a chance to talk about parenting and everything else. You're just such an amazing person. I probably knew, but I probably immediately forgot. I can't believe you're over 50. That just blows my mind. I'm like thinking you're in your 30s. You look amazing.
That feels good, though. Thank you.
You're radiant. Keep rocking who you are, sister, because I value you and I appreciate you. And I know so many other people in the world do. And I know your son does. So thank you for being a kick-ass mom to him as well.
Thank you. I appreciate you, big bro.
You rock. I'm going to put you backstage for a second and finish out the show. Don't go anywhere. And then I want to talk to you for a sec, but thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. 53 minutes, the Raw and Unscripted show every single Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Let's talk about what we got out of this. But first, I want to capture a couple of comments. I forgot to capture these. Daniel had captured this. He says, because I said so is always the go-to answer, talking about parenting. That was probably what Daniel heard from his mom, Jeanette. And then we got Robert in the house. Robert says here he is he's building more relationships. Awesome, Robert. Appreciate that. And he says clarity is actually the main topic of discussion on the other stream too. Robert is always multitasking. Thank you, Robert, for being here. Appreciate you guys all being here live or on the replay. But listen, here's the crux of the conversation tonight. You got to take ownership and responsibility for you. So many of you guys are out there focusing on everybody else. You're worried about what other people think. You're sitting there living in fear, and you have this little bit of curiosity going on. Like, can I do this? Can I really do this? Can I make that jump? And you heard Tracy talk about that. She made that jump. She spent 7 years planning for that jump, but she did it properly. And then she made that jump. She said, no excuses. I'm going to go do this because I want to be there for my son. I want to be there for myself. I don't want to continue having a stressful life, putting stress within my body, on my body, and then ultimately having another diagnosis that I have to go through and fight again. Life is short, ladies and gentlemen. Life is so short. We are here to either live or exist. And so many people out there, I don't think the guys that are watching the show right now are existing, but that's my purpose. That's my intention every single day when I wake up. And I do set that intention to say that Christopher Rausch will make a difference in the world by the things he does and the things he says. That is my God's honest truth that I want to do for you guys. I want to inspire you to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You know, so oftentimes we want that safety and that security and everything else. But once you step out and you say, listen, if I just get uncomfortable once a week, 7 days in a week, I want you to get uncomfortable once. That's 52 situations of getting uncomfortable. Let me ask you a question. Do you think after 52 experiences of getting uncomfortable that you would be more comfortable getting uncomfortable? Without a doubt. So why not do it? I'm afraid. I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid of what other people are going to say. I'm afraid of success. Well, listen, you can look through life through two lenses. You get to choose the lens of fear or the lens of love. And if you love yourself and if you love life and you have kids and you want to set the example for them, take those risks. But first, it starts with your self-care. First, it starts with loving yourself. So I'm going to ask you this question. Do you love yourself? Yes or no? And obviously you don't need to answer me. You can answer me privately if you'd like, but that's the first spot. The second spot is, are you taking care of yourself? Yes or no? Are you getting proper hydration? The studies say drink half your body weight in ounces of water every day. Get some proper nutrition, eat from the outsides of this grocery store. Chris, I can't afford that. Well, let me ask you another question. Can you afford later on in life to be spending a whole bunch of money on prescriptions and doctor's visits because you're fucking diabetic or your cholesterol's high or you got high blood pressure because you didn't take care of yourself because you ate fast food because it was cheap? Trust me, I've talked to people. They regret the shit they ate before, because they could have easily eaten fruits and vegetables like we were talking about, using supplements, using herbs like Tracy was saying. That's what I'm going through right now. I'm 53 and I know that I can no longer eat McDonald's and all other shit all the time. So guess what? Now it's once in a while. But other than that, fruits and vegetables, organic chicken, things of that nature, nuts, making sure that I'm taking care of myself, hydrating. As you can see, my skin is beautiful. That's what you do. You got to take care of yourself and get out there. And then lastly, the advice I want to leave you with is make sure you're surrounding yourself with beautiful people like Tracy. If she connected with you, please reach out to her on any of the different social medias that she put up there. Connect with her, work with her, because when you reset your life and you reset your mind, just think about what different places you'll be in 12 months, 6 months, even 3 months. Trust me, it happens. I see it every single day with my own clients. So do us a favor here, support Tracy, go check her out, have a complimentary coaching session with her, whatever it is that she might be offering, go connect with her and work with her because she's a brilliant soul. I've seen it in action. And for you guys, just go out there and live your life unapologetically. Just go fly your freak flag. Stop waiting. That dash between your birthday and your end date, that's your life. Nobody else is going to come live it for you. Nobody else is going to come save you. Just go live your life now. Go do shit that makes you happy. And if it doesn't make you happy, ask yourself why you're doing it. If you're doing it because you think you have to, then analyze that question. I have to. Why? Why do I have to? You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Obviously, you got to take care of yourself and take care of others, but there's more ways to do that. I'm the No Excuses Coach, And I love you guys. Thank you for being here on the Raw and Unscripted show. We'll be back here next Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And as always, check out the audio podcast. It is wherever you get your podcast. Just type in Raw and Unscripted. If you need to, put in No Excuses Coach. You'll find me. You'll find the Raw and Unscripted show. You'll find the Unfiltered Experience. You'll even find the Rainbows in Real Life show that I do once a month with my dear friend Pamela Aubrey. And then you're going to find the new podcast that I told you about in the beginning of the show. So if you want to find out about the new podcast, go back and listen to the first part of the show if you're just catching us here in the middle. I love you guys. Stay kick-ass and classy. We'll see you next time on the Raw and Unscripted show. I love you guys. Cheers.